Hey, it's Wednesday. That means it's time for another video edition of Widower Wednesday. I'm Abel Keogh, author of the book Dating the Widower. And today on Widower Wednesday, we're going to do something a little different. We're going to play a game. And the game is called Is It a Red Flag? And the way this game works is I'm going to give you 4 or 5 different situations here. And you've got to decide whether or not this is a red flag. You can write down the answers. You can think it to yourself, whatever it is you want to do. But we're going to talk about different widower situations, and you've got to decide whether or not the behavior the widower exhibiting is actually a red flag. Now, the reason we're doing this game is sometimes I'm on different discussion boards or whatnot on Facebook or other places, and it seems like situations always come up where, let me give you an example, like the woman goes to the widower's house for the very first time. And when she's there, she notices that the house hasn't changed at all, right? It still looks exactly the same from the day the late wife died. And the question inevitably comes up: well, is he ready to date again? Is this a red flag? Is this something I should be concerned about? So, really, what we're going to do is play this game, and it'll tell you how you can tell any situation that comes up with a widower at all, whether or not it is a red flag. So it doesn't matter. All of your red flag questions can be answered simply by playing this game. So you ready? You ready to play? Okay. Here is the first situation, and think to yourself whether or not this is a red flag. The widower shows up on his date wearing his wedding band on his finger or on a chain around his neck. Is that a red flag? Give you a few seconds here to think about it. We'll go on to the next situation. Okay. All right. Hope you have your answer down. Here's the second situation. You walk into the widower's home, and there is a giant shrine to his late wife. Whatever, a giant photograph, and I don't know, flowers, and maybe her urn. I don't know, any kind of thing you can think of that would go into a shrine. There's this giant shrine here. It's the first time you visited his house. Is that a red flag? Think about it for a few seconds. Okay, go on to the third situation. You go into the widower's main bathroom, and the late wife's clothes are in the closet, and her toiletries are still in the drawers in the bathroom. Is that a red flag? Write down your answer. Think about it. Whatever you're going to do. You got a few seconds here. Dun, 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 dun. Okay. Fourth situation. The widower constantly talks about his late wife. Is that a red flag? Mark your answers. Get them all ready. Okay. Let's go to the fifth and final situation. The widower won't introduce you to friends or family, or he won't invite you to family activities. Is that a red flag? Give you a few seconds here to get your answer. All right. So to recap, I'll just recap these situations again. The widower shows up to a date wearing a wedding ring on his finger or on a necklace around his neck. Is that a red flag? He has a shrine to the late wife in the home. Her clothes are in the closet, or his toiletries are in the bathroom. He constantly talks about his late wife, and he won't introduce you to friends or family, or won't invite you to family activities. So are these red flags? Now, I just picked these 5 situations. You can put it on a lot of other situations here. But the answer to all of these questions is the same. And the answer is maybe. Maybe it's a red flag. Okay, kind of a trick questions here that I'm asking you. Now, some of you are wondering, well, how is it a red flag? If his late wife stuff, or if his late wife clothes are in the closet and her toiletries are in the bathroom, how is that not a red flag? Well, this is why I say maybe, because these situations are only a red flag or a problem if the widower doesn't see them as a problem and he won't make changes. So I bring this up because so many times I see women asking, these questions about these situations or others, and the immediate response for so many people is, it's a red flag, he's not ready. And I want to say, like, for example, there was one, a couple weeks ago on the Facebook group I'm a part of, and the woman was concerned that the widower wore a chain. The widower wore a chain on his neck, and his wedding band was attached to it. And there were so many people that came back and said, "Oh my gosh, that's a red flag, and he's not ready." And I was like, "Wait a minute here, let's back it up a little bit." Is it really a red flag that he showed up that way? Because when I showed up with my first date to Juliana, guess what? I had a chain around my neck and the wedding ring around there. Does that mean it was a red flag? Should Juliana just have said run? Would that have been the right response? And really, basically, I want you to understand that there's no perfect widowers out there. Anytime you date a widower, he's going to have at least one red flag. It could be these 5 situations or something else. Widowers, there's no such thing as the perfect widower who has put all of his wife's stuff away and whatever has, and never visits the cemetery or doesn't have some type of shrine or memorial up, whatever it is, fill in the blank. There isn't a widower out there maybe who doesn't hesitate to introduce you to friends and family because he's worried about how they'll react. There's tons of situations. There's no such thing as a perfect widower out there. And if we judge red flags without having a discussion with the widower or without seeing if he's willing to make changes, then you're kind of jumping the gun and you're too premature on that. So, for example, on the wedding ring thing, he shows up with a wedding ring on his, it's where he's wearing a wedding ring, on a necklace or on his finger. Is it a red flag? Well, I would say perhaps. What happens if you talk to the widow? What if you go out on the date and you decide he's worth a second date and you tell him, just so you know, I don't date married men, and you can point out the ring that way. It's probably only a red flag if he shows up for the second date with the ring on his finger or the ring around his neck. For those who, if he has her clothes in the closet or her toiletries in the bathroom, is it a red flag? Well, it's only a red flag is if you bring it up to him and say something along the lines of, look, I like you, this is a great relationship, but, your late wife's stuff's all over the house. I don't know if I can have I don't think you're ready to move on. You can have that kind of conversation. You can word it however you want. Now, if he's not putting stuff away, then yeah, it's a red flag. He's not ready. But if he's willing to make changes and he's willing to remove her clothes from the closet or take down the shrine or remove the toiletries from the bathroom, then maybe it's not so much of a red flag. What if the widower's constantly talking about his late wife? Okay, it's only a red flag is if you bring it up and you say, look, I know you had a great relationship with the late wife. I don't mind hearing about her occasionally, but you're talking about her all the time. Could we only bring her up maybe when it's an appropriate situation or it's relevant to the conversation? Now, a widower who's ready to move on will do his best to kind of dial it back a bit, and doesn't mean he won't talk about her, but he'll talk about her in more maybe relevant or in a relevant way instead of just talking about her. So in that case, it's not a red flag unless he won't stop talking about her. Again, we'll go back to the widower introducing you to friends, and he won't introduce you to friends and family. Well, have you brought it up with him? Have you said, I'd like to meet your family, your friends? We've been dating, 4 or 5 months here. Let's meet them. It's time to do that. Now, if he's willing to make it happen somehow, I'm not saying it won't be easy for him because sometimes it's not, but if he's willing to make that happen, it's probably not a red flag. But if he makes excuses and says, oh, they're not ready or whatever, and he keeps making excuses, then it's a red flag. So that's why I say, you can apply this game to any situation in dating a widower. And it's not the fact that he shows up, because again, when Julie was first dating me, I had pictures of my late wife everywhere. I visited the cemetery all the time. I had my wedding band on a chain around my neck. I mean, would the advice to Juliana have been run, or would the better advice have been talk to him about these concerns and see what he does? Because when Julie brought up the wedding ring, I took it off the next day. When she didn't bring up the cemetery thing, but my cemetery visit stopped, right? Things like that. Widowers, the key thing you need to know about widowers is they need a reason to change. And just because a widower shows up with a wedding ring on his finger or a shrine to the late wife of his home, maybe he hasn't had a reason to take that ring off or to take the shrine down. And you can be the reason for that, because widowers need a chance to decide what's more important to me. Is it this shrine to the late wife, or is it this relationship with the new person? Is it the wedding ring on my hand, or is it the relationship with this new person? Widowers need to have that opportunity to make that judgment. And until they're in a situation or in a relationship, what's the reason for them just to take off the wedding band or to take down the shrine? They don't have one. And when you reach a point where you can have that conversation with the widower, you can know real quick whether or not he's serious about you and the relationship, and whether or not his actions or inactions in this case is a red flag. because you'll see that he's not making changes. But widowers who are ready to move on, they'll take off the ring, they'll remove the clothes from the closet, they'll stop talking about the late wife so much, they'll introduce you to friends and family. But they need to have a reason to do that. And simply because he shows up on the first date doesn't mean you should run. It means that you should have the first date there and then start setting healthy boundaries. And if he respects those healthy boundaries, he's ready. If not, if he's exhibiting these red flags, won't change his behavior, it's time to move on. So was that helpful? Was that a good, helpful game for you? Again, you can apply this is it a red flag game to any situation with dating a widower, and you can decide for yourself if it's a red flag. I'm Abel Keogh, author of the book Dating a Widower. Feel free to go ahead and subscribe. Feel free as well to watch another video. And if you do, if there's situations you want to talk about, red flags with your widower, you can go to my website, abelkeogh.com, and schedule a coaching session. I'm Abel Keogh, and I will see you next Wednesday.